Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining this session, the tech evolution of flex worker pools, led by Curt Baldwin. Curt is the CTO of Medical Solutions. He leads digital innovation and technology strategy and healthcare staffing. He has over 30 years experience, including CTO roles at Aya Healthcare. We have a lot to learn from Curt, and I'm looking forward to this discussion, and I'll let you take it from here. Thanks, Curt.
Awesome. Thanks, Jared. Appreciate that intro. Great to be here with all of you today at the Shiftwork Summit for 2025. Today, I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about the tech evolution of flex worker pools and how that's come along. My team and I were spending a healthy amount of time working in this area. It's important to our clients, and therefore it's important to me and my team. So we're really excited to be here to talk to you a little bit about it today. So I'll just keep moving on real quick. Just a quick intro here. Jared already mentioned Curt Baldwin, CTO at the Medical Solutions. I've been in healthcare and medical device my entire career. I think it was in my intro. Unfortunately, they did spill. It was like been 30 years, so it's a little bit long in the tooth here. Prior to that, I was a principal at Tatita, where actually I Healthcare was a client. Joined I Healthcare as their CTO in 2017. That's really when I got immersed into the healthcare staffing realm. For those of you that have been in healthcare staffing, I'm sure you can imagine this riding the COVID rate wave was quite an experience for probably everybody involved. I joined in 2017. We had an opportunity to get some things in order, but I don't think anything can prepare you for the black swan that COVID was. And that wave took us from, we've been doing well, about 600 million, not a small company, but it felt like overnight we swelled up to 12 billion. So I can tell you that our tech systems, the volumes on them went about 20x, which was crazy for us to deal with. As that adventure curtailed, the industry was starting to see a change, right? And we're still seeing that change today. There was so much effort spent on agencies and pulling in nurses last minute for a nationwide crisis, well, global crisis, but obviously we were servicing most of the United States. So really, that was a time not too long after that, Medical Solutions reached out and I got to meet Rebecca, their new CEO. And we just had really a strong professional connection. We're really excited about where the trends of the industry were heading. AI was obviously popping, but also I think what's a really important piece of this, and it's a personal passion of mine, and we'll talk about it throughout the presentation here. AI and technology are great. I'm excited about them. I love them. I love working in this field. But at the end of the day, we're connecting care, right? We're connecting care providers with those that need the care. And it's all about people. And AI and tech, in my mind, really need to be there to service that relationship. And that's always been important to me. And that's really what I think what we need to keep in mind as we move forward. And that's why I'm really excited to be at Medical Solutions. So just to give a quick intro to Medical Solutions, they too, one of the nation's largest healthcare staffing firms, been established in 2001, headquartered in Omaha, Nebraska. I always find it funny. Omaha and San Diego. I'm actually based in San Diego, two of the hotbeds for healthcare staffing. It's kind of interesting how they form together. But basically, as I mentioned earlier, really the primary mission for us is we're connecting care. We're bringing people, the care providers, together with the patients that really need that care. And but when you're doing that, at the end of the day, we are still running a business, and our clients are running their business. So really trying to help them understand their staffing needs and gain efficiencies there, control labor costs. It's gigantic costs. And coming out of COVID, that was actually just huge. And then the various hospitals were trying to deal with that. And all the way when you're doing all of this, trying to bring in the healthcare providers, you got to make sure patient care is top of mind at all times. Nothing else really matters at the end of the day but patient care. So really all these complicated things need to come together to deliver excellent patient care. That's a big part of what we're about and a big part of what me and my technology team are about here at Medical Solutions. So let's take a step back, maybe talk about the bigger picture for a second. Like any good organization who's serving customers, you should always think about them and their perspective, what's on their mind. So our customers really want and need insights into their staffing needs, and quite frankly, to benchmark themselves a little bit across the industry. Hospitals range widely in size, right? Very small, but some are just sprawling. And really, they suffer from the same problems that all of us do in an enterprise, where you've got different silos of information and you can't get that bigger picture. So they really just want all that data brought together so they can see what's going on, how well they are performing their staffing and meeting their patient census. Patient census, that's another piece. They need help in understanding what their expected census will be. Now, no model out there could have predicted COVID, as far as I'm concerned, but absolutely looking at historical trends and looking forward, you can absolutely get some idea of what your patient census will be. There's absolutely seasonality. One of the things I've always found fascinating about industry, obviously in the United States, we're here in the Northern Hemisphere. We look globally, so regularly the Southern Hemisphere to see how their winter went and what their flu and COVID and other diseases went and try and help use that information to inform us on what the patient census will be. So that's absolutely a thing for us to pull that information and share it with our clients. And of course, they're looking at it themselves and try and get an idea of what that census will be. So as you can see with these two items, really staffing in many ways is as much about data as it is people. I never want to undersell the importance of people. We're all humans and have to approach everything with that human approach. But data is critical to what we do and help us best serve our patients and our customers. Load prediction. So really that's understanding that patient census, what it's going to be and how it's going to evolve. And then schedule optimization is an important piece. So you've got so many people on staff. How best can you meet those needs that are being brought to you with that load prediction? So these are critical pieces, and really it's just to oversimplify it a little bit, that's really what our hospitals are looking at from a healthcare staffing perspective. Again, with patient care and patient safety top of mind at all times. So why do we have flex worker pools? So there are a lot of different options that you can use to staff, right? And they have varying attributes. Direct hire. So basically this is bringing somebody on full time. That's great for permanent needs. So if you're a growing hospital and you've got this basically unmet need all the time, that's a fantastic place to be, but it is a high commitment, right? Once you're putting a lot of effort in to bring that person in, once they're there, you're spending a lot of time training them. So it's a very high commitment bar, and you really want to be sure that you need that person when you bring them on. Travel nursing. This is a big part of medical solutions and what I've been a part of through the whole COVID wave. These are great, the typical quarter assignments, 13-week on average assignments. They're great for extended needs, but obviously they're not quite like a direct hire. They're not there for a permanent position. Now, I will say, even at that 13-week level, about 40% of the time, our nurses are extended at least once, and sometimes multiple times. Travel nurses are a nice bridge between direct hire and a very short-term solution. So they're a nice midterm solution. So critical there, but a little bit less commitment. Per diem. Call outs happen all the time. Our hospital schedulers face them. Per diem is a fantastic way to shore those last minute needs. It may be something if there's a sudden uptick in flu or something in the local area, or again, just things happen and staff don't always make their shifts. It's great for extremely short term. It's obviously the least level of commitment. So these are items that are typically filled frequently by agencies, but talking about internal resource pools. This is something that really, especially after COVID, and again, going through all the challenges with agencies that all of our hospital clients face, they're really looking internally to see what they can do with their own staff. Now, what they can do greatly depends on how big that company is, how big that system is. If you're small in only one area, an internal resource pool that deals with shifts is probably the most likely capability for you. But in many cases, these systems span nationwide, and they can really have basically an internal travel pool. And that is something that a lot of our clients are looking into and trying to see what they can do with that. Again, the capability, what is offered, available to you, really depends on the size of your system. I think it allows for tremendous flexibility within the system and their staff. A couple things here. Sometimes hospitals tend to just deal with their local pool and they'll pull them in and use a lot of overtime with some of their favorite staff. I think that is a bit of a dangerous situation for a couple reasons. One, overtime is not cheap. It is not a cost-effective solution. But also, if you become overly dependent, you're constantly bringing in the same group of folks, they're going to suffer from burnout. That is a real thing that happens. And quite frankly, it can impact patient safety. It's something that always needs to be kept in mind and really need to be thinking about that. Just as much as that type of approach can cause burnout and reduce retention, By implementing a pool effectively, you can actually flip that and you can have a more cost-effective solution. You can increase basically that happiness of your nurses. I think nurses in general are just like all of us. We're happiest when we're growing and getting to visit potentially a different part of the country, be in a different facility within the system. They're not all the same. They face different problems, different issues. And really, you're growing. Your career is growing. You feel good about that. Just the way, again, it can cause burnout if you're not dealing with these issues. Expanding to an internal resource pool, especially at a larger facility or system with facilities throughout the country, you can really flip that on its head and increase workforce retention. So it's a very powerful tool. Okay, so that's great. We've got these, we understand basically why internal resource pools are important to our clients. But what is technology's role in all of this? We talked about how clients really want to know what their load is, what their current staffing situation is, and then they've got a number of flexible options for them to fill those needs. So, how is technology going to help fill those gaps? The first of all, actionable information. And I really like that phrase, actionable. Seeing pretty graphs and things like that is nice, but it's not necessarily going to solve your problem. Having that actionable information and at times actually providing recommendations to you as the scheduler is critical to everything. That basically is helping you better understand what the situation is and what your options are to solve those issues. Another thing that we've seen that's critical, again, these hospitals are huge at times, they're sprawling. And you've got a lot of team members that are spread throughout. And especially if you're doing an internal resource pool that's across the country, that's not something that you're going to do basically just having somebody pick up the phone and or texting or just emails. It's a lot. And having a system that can really help you connect the team so you can quickly see who is qualified for the positions that you have open and also see them against existing schedules so you understand how loaded they are or are not. That's really critical. And especially when it's an IRP type of shift situation where time is of the essence, having real-time communication is critical. So again, having this comprehensive system where you can reach and see everybody quickly really helps that situation, keeps the team connected. And I like to say it's sending the right information to the right people at the right time. If you're if this isn't coordinated well and you're told about something way in advance, it may just leave your mind and not something you're really thinking about. So trying to reach those people at the right time when it's on top of their mind and it meets the timing of the need, those are all critical. And then managing complexity. These things are not simple. I've talked about some of the challenges already, but managing all these people, and we talk about tiered pay, and in some cases that's Uber's surge pricing, right? Depending on the situation, you may need quite a few people, depending on the time of year as well. It may be very challenging. Right now, obviously, we're coming up on the holidays. That my heart always goes out to the schedulers this time of year. They're trying to balance potentially high flu and COVID needs, because I believe this year's a little bit above average, not crazy, but a little bit above average. But you're trying to balance that with people who, again, still dealing with some burnout issues from COVID, but also, these are just people that want to enjoy the holidays with their family as well. Trying to keep track of all that and find people that are available and willing to fill these shifts is challenging. And sometimes tiered pay based on those scenarios is something you have to do. And it's just part of the game. Collecting information. Again, we talked about earlier, staffing is as much about data as it is people. And really, it's absolutely critical just to continue to bring in this information, have a look at it, and then use that information to predict forward. But also, it's important to look back. How accurate was that information that you were previously acting on? The actions you took, how effective were they? Did you fill all those staffing needs? Did you fill them in a cost advantageous way, in a cost effective manner? Again, just throwing overtime at everybody is not something that's critical, or sorry, not something that's practical. It causes a lot of additional information or additional problems. So continuously that evolution of learning and improving from the information that you gathered and review is critical to the success of any IRP program. And then finally, really it is a lot like an internal agency. We do this, I think hospitals regularly work with agencies, but they don't necessarily know all the challenges that we have behind the scenes. I can tell you, for working in this industry for quite some time now, it is extremely challenging. There are such a variation. We all know this, I'm sure, on this call. Nurses are not all created equal. They're just widely different specialties, incredibly capable people, but they vary quite a bit in what they're experts in. Also, these days, there's all kinds of technology in hospitals, going from the medical devices to the software that they use, the EMR systems. And different people are familiar with different systems. So it's absolutely critical to get all that information in. We have a lot of very detailed skills checklists and competency exams that we run across people to try and make sure we're finding people the right fit. So again, it's just, I think for those outside that think, oh, just put a nurse there, it's just not that simple. There's just a lot of challenging skills. Again, healthcare skills, absolutely, but being familiar with the medical devices that hospital's using, the EMR system that hospital's using, it's really critical. The internal agencies here, they start to run into some of these issues, and it's something that we really want to work with them to help them understand and help them be successful with their programs. This is absolutely not something we view as competition, but really what I would say is more of a partnership, because there are absolutely just going to be times when, based on needs, they're not going to be able to fill all those needs themselves. And we want to be there to help them understand those needs and be as proactive as possible. The more, it's not always the rule, but commonly the more proactive you can be, the better off you are in terms of cost efficiency. If you're thrown into a situation where you've got to grab people a lot at the last minute, that can lead to overtime, that'll lead to more call outs, which will lead to more churn, and those per diem shifts really become critical. So again, understanding the landscape and being able to predict as much as possible is really helpful here. All right, so what's next? These are exciting things that we're building, but really, where are we heading with all this? I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but AI's kind of been a thing lately, a little bit popular. You hear about once or twice a day, or maybe every hour if you're in technology. It is fantastic for spotting staffing patterns. I'll tell you that early on in my experience with AI and comparing, contrasting the strengths to traditional approaches with technology and solving problems, one of the things we always want to do is collect the clinician preferences for what they want, whether it's an internal resource pool or travel nurse, doesn't matter. We're trying to understand information about them so we can get them set up with the best job that makes sense for them. Well, you can ask them a million questions. And the funny thing is about people is you get asked a question and you obviously want to give the right answer, but sometimes you don't even know it yourself. Really what I've found is when people are on the sites and they start searching the jobs and the jobs that they start looking at and the ones they glance over versus the one they drill down in, that's really them telling you what they're interested in. And collecting all that information and then running it through these machine learning models that, by the way, are specific to each nurse. Nurses are, we talked about them already, they're unique humans, and what drives them varies significantly from one nurse to another. So being able to spot these patterns with machine learning is really critical to helping us understand them and put them in the best position possible. Answering questions in real time in a digestible way. So what I mean by that, it's really the chatbots, right? And chatbots have become just incredibly evolved. You can ask complex questions, and if you're feeding them the right data and the right training, you can really get some great answers that are much easier to digest. Sometimes, yeah, you can drill around and go in the application. We all try and build our applications as user intuitive as possible, and we all do our best. And I think many times do a great job. But sometimes it just takes asking just a plain English question. And today, the way that happens frequently is talking to their recruiter. But if you do that, sometimes the recruiter's not available 24/7 is really where I'm heading with that. So having basically a chatbot that can respond anytime with solid answers is invaluable. This is really something this last bullet point is something I'm passionate about. Again, I mentioned it sometimes here, but I always talk about it on my social media as well. It's really AI. We shouldn't think of it as replacing people. We really should be thinking of it as freeing up people to have real conversations with other people and get to the answers that they're looking for. There's just times, again, AI, machine learning chatbots provide great information. They're not emotional beings. And sometimes taking an assignment somewhere is not just about all the facts. It's about the experience, that emotional experience, and what they're going to feel when they take that assignment. And sometimes you just need to talk to somebody about that to understand. Somebody who's been through it before and talked to others in that situation so that you can understand. AI is great, but it doesn't solve all of our problems. But I want it to make room to have those real human to human connections. Integration into existing systems. I would say that less is more when it comes to systems for users and security. And this last kind of phrase here, core strategies should use core systems. Again, so many systems out there have a wide variety of systems, and sometimes throwing one more in the mix is not always ideal. If they are a more mature enterprise and they have less silos and more information in the systems, integrating into them is key and helping that, because nobody wants to swivel chair and dual key information and trying to keep it up to date. Really having that single source of truth and making it easier for our users to interact with us is key here. And then finally, governance and equity. As we get more and more into these automated systems and how they pick staff, we find out sometimes there's unintended bias in that. Not that there wasn't before. I think even with humans picking through, that it just sometimes it happens. We all have our favorite staff that are key to pick there, but it's a real opportunity basically to make sure that if there are people within, and I'll use the large system as an example of facilities throughout the nation, we want to make sure we get those assignments equally to the team and keep the entire team motivated and working to retain all of them and help them grow in their careers. So that's a critical piece. And it's, I think, something, especially with AI in the mix now, that our different state laws and even federal laws are evolving rapidly around this topic. And it's important for us to keep it in mind as we systematize these things. So I think that's it for me, Jared, but I'm here for some Q&A if we've got any.
Awesome. Thanks, Curt. Great presentation and really enjoyed you walking us through that. There are a couple of questions here. I'll start with the most recent one, and it is, in your business, is the power of AI more about the communication layer with the user or the integration layer between siloed systems?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, today it's very heavy. It's less about communication and more about the data and the integration. We're taking all that data and looking for the trends in there. I absolutely do. We do use it some, like when you're submitting a candidate, we use the various LLMs to help create like a sizzle statement and things like that. We are looking at some of that. And we do make use of some AI chatbots, but I think predominantly it's really on the data side and how we're connecting those systems.
Got it. Excellent. And in terms of healthcare being a litigious industry, what keeps you up at night in that regard, especially in the AI first world?
Yep. Actually, that's a great tie in almost to the last question, which kind of so I said, hey, I don't love that direct communication sometimes. I want it to be very, what keeps me up at night is unleashing something like a chatbot. And then a nurse comes in and starts talking to the chatbot and honestly gets crazy answers. Hallucinations are a thing that we're always trying to keep an eye on. When we've looked at some of this stuff before, like creating sizzle statements and saying, hey, this client wants this, here's their resume, try and sell this to them. I've seen hallucination where it makes up credentials because the client needed it and thought, therefore, I should sell on it. But that was not in their resume. So things where you're misrepresenting with an AI really is what keeps me up at night. And what I've learned in my experience so far with this is keeping everything very tight and very narrow and not giving it a wide band at this point was the best way to avoid that. In a lot of situations, we're basically having humans overread these things too. Obviously, you don't do that in real time with an AI chatbot, but that's the one that keeps me up at night.
Got it. Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. Could definitely be concerning. The last question here is, COVID has come and gone. What are the biggest permanent shifts that it has led to within the industry?
Honestly, I think it's this. For a while, hospitals had a love-hate relationship with agencies during COVID. Let's just be honest about that. We speaking as for the industry a little bit, we were able to supply nurses when they needed it. But by the same token, it was a tough time for hospitals, COVID. This is not how they do financially well. It was a struggle for them. And as we're coming out of this, there's been a little bit of, hey, I don't know if I want agencies anymore. And that's where I think really a huge boon to internal resource pools came out of. And I think that is an important shift. And then also really the strong recognition of nurse burnout, that it happens, it's real. These are people that, as much as they take care of us, we need to take care of them. So really, I think a lot of our efforts are, hey, let's put the right people in the right places that are good for them, good for the hospitals. These internal resource pools are a great way to, again, help people grow and move, because Some nurses working hospitals then watch travel nurses come in, and let's be honest, at the time they were getting paid very high rates. That causes issues. They were talking about governance and equity. They see that and they start to think, why shouldn't I become maybe a travel nurse or something like that? But really being offered the opportunities that are similar in an internal resource pool and being able to grow and see new things for their career, I think is very exciting. I think that's something that's here to stay.
Got it. Awesome. Thanks for answering those questions. I think that was a great kind of capstone to your presentation. Thanks again for the presentation and shedding light on this idea of internal worker pools and how it looks like they're here to stay within the industry. Thanks, Curt. Appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure, Jared. Thanks for having me. Have a good day, everybody.
You too. Cheers.